guys, I'm Alex.
And I'm Ben.
And we're Married with Dragons.
Get myself set in the camera. I was a bit askew.
So, what's on for tonight?
I guess for anyone who hasn't joined us before, we're just
not
an old married couple, a young married couple who like to chat about D&D, all things big and small in the D&D world.
Yeah.
Alex, you're primarily a player.
Yes.
Played a couple campaigns now.
Yeah.
I'm both a player and a DM. We like to have a bit of chat about everything. We've done a few reviews, bit of how-to on building certain classes, which I'm very keen to keep doing in the future. It was a lot of fun.
We did, if people have tuned in every week, we did have a bye last week.
Yes.
Yes. Ben unfortunately had work.
Yeah, ran a little bit over time, and so I wasn't quite able to get back.
But we are back, and hopefully we'll be back every single week. But
one of my friends did say to me, "Why don't you just have a conversation with yourself instead of having me?" And I thought you might have looked a bit strange.
I would have, and also I don't have the knowledge of a DM, so I would be googling while doing this, I guess.
That's right. Well, the trick to being a DM is pretending you have all the knowledge anyway, so that's fine. But yeah, tonight we're going to touch on a few bits and pieces. Still going to go through a bit of a story from our D&D experience. Yeah. But the big topic we're going to be touching on is power gaming.
Yes, and what is it? Since I don't really know much about it.
I suppose you don't really know much about it since you haven't really done it much yourself, which honestly I think is a good thing.
Yeah, and I don't think I've come across a player that tries to do it. Unless I've been oblivious.
Yeah. It's something you probably pick up on a bit more as a DM, trying to make sure everything's balanced. But, I think especially because it comes into play a lot when you're character building, making your characters and creating your players when you are in the game. So I thought, before we go too far into too many more classes, we've covered Barbarian so far, before we go too far into too many more classes, maybe we could touch a bit on what it actually is, what power gaming actually is. And then, of course, as always, finish off with the highlight of the stream.
The joke.
My fabulous D&D joke. I've got one ready, locked and loaded to go. So definitely make sure you stick around for that.
Yeah, it's going to be... I don't know what it's going to be, but hopefully it's not too dad joke-like.
Oh, you know it will be.
It will be.
It will be. But yeah, what do you reckon? Get started into a story to get us going?
Yeah, so...
I've got one picked out tonight that's it was certainly a challenge as the dungeon master to roll with the party's decisions.
Yeah. It was a very interesting situation. So myself and a few party members were in a temple with the yarn tea.
Yarn tea.
Yeah. And we're just trying to find our way around the temple, and we came across a room. I think it wasn't someone. We're invisible.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to sort of put a bit of insight around it as well. For anyone who hasn't played much D&D or has come across it before, Yarn Tea are basically snake people.
Yeah.
And in this instance,
half
they
man,
are
half snake.
They are the bad guys.
Yes.
They are the evil dudes that they're trying to foil their plans and get past. And yeah, you were invisible at the time. You decided to try and do a bit of a covert operation to get into the temple. I believe you were looking for some artifacts.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. You were looking for some parts of a puzzle, and you were trying to covertly go in because you had no idea how many people were in this temple. Covertly try and go in, get a bit of information, get back to the group.
Yeah.
It was yourself and was there 3 other people, I believe?
3
or two other people.
Yeah, and so we went in and we had a look at this room. We saw a couple of dinosaurs in pens and a few yarn tea around, so we're like, we're gonna have to try and sneak around this area.
And up to this point, sneaking's been quite easy for you guys because you've been invisible, so I've been giving you advantage in your stealth checks. Obviously it's more just it's obviously sight's not gonna be able to pick you up, so you've been cruising by pretty well, and I think it's safe to say you guys are pretty cocky at this point. You guys are feeling pretty safe. You're like, nah, it's fine. We're not going to get caught.
Yeah. And I think we're trying to make a diversion.
So the reason you had to make the diversion in the first place is the rogue that was with you was a bit of a kleptomaniac, liked to collect things, and from a couple of sessions before, I think it was the session previously, she had collected a severed limb of one of the creatures that you had slain.
Oh, yeah.
And she had that in her backpack. Now, although, they couldn't be seen, they could still be heard, and they could certainly still be smelled. Now, a rotting limb in a backpack is going to have quite a strong smell, and the auntie actually had a few basilisk that were there, which was kind of like their attack dogs, per se.
Yeah. So they would have obviously smelt the rotting limb. And, we had to make a diversion. And
can you remember what the rogue did to try and originally throw them off your trail, though?
No.
She just threw the rotting arm into the air.
And I think it landed in a carnivore pen, I think.
You guys were near the carnivore pen, actually. And so she's thrown this arm into the air. And so I've described the scene as like this arm's just mystically formed out of nothing. Like it was invisible. As soon as she's thrown it, it's not no person anymore. It becomes visible again. And so all of a sudden there's this big commotion. And you guys are like, well, shit, what do we do? And, I think, that's right. You tried to create a commotion so you could get away by smacking.
Yeah. So I was trying to smack a triceratops from what I can remember.
Yes, it was.
And because I'm a brawly barbarian, I rolled... So in D&D you can roll too well. So I rolled way too well on my slap, and I practically yeeted.
You spanked it pretty hard. You spanked it pretty hard.
The triceratops, and I think it's because didn't you say in the rule that once I touched the triceratops?
Well, because it was you were making an action to slap it. I had your invisibility lift.
Yeah.
You were no longer invisible, and so your character was just standing there in the middle of this pen, surrounded by enemies who hadn't noticed you yet.
Yeah.
And so, as the dinosaurs charging out of the pen, you had a moment of brilliance to try and hide yourself.
I dove?
Yes, you dove
into a pile of poo and thought that was a brilliant hiding spot.
My favourite thing about that was the way you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because you didn't just say, go down to a pile of poo. Like, I described, your invisibility has dropped, and you've said, hey, Ben, is there any poo in the pen? And I'm looking at you just like, yeah? Like, why? Like, what possible use can you have for that?
I was thinking of Jurassic Park, where there was that sick triceratops and that giant poo pile that was the size of Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum's 6 foot. A dwarf can fit in some poo.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a brilliant idea of mine, and I went for it.
Dove straight in, and it all just went hectic. That was when I really had to sort of just try and think what the hell is going on here, because you dove into the poo to hide. The other two that were still invisible ran away, found a massive gong, and they thought, oh, gee, what a good idea that would be to hit it.
Yeah.
Which they didn't realise at the time was the central alarm. So they hit the gong. They've become visible again after attacking some guards that came and found them. So they're visible. They're trapped. Their alarm's been set off. You're in a pile of poo. It's all just very, very quickly gone downhill for the party. And I can just remember that session was like trying to keep up with what you guys are doing. You're like, what is happening? One of you actually ended up dying from your actions there. So it had some dire consequences. But I must say, you hiding in the pile of poo, a moment of brilliance, did pay off.
I think I got a point of inspiration for that.
My favourite part, though, was the aftermath, when all of the enemies had left the room charging after the other two that had fled. And so you were like, right, once everyone's gone, I charge down the hall back to the rest of the party. Yeah. And so I just got to describe you just charging at full speed, poo flinging off your character. Like, it just would have just been the most ridiculous sight to see.
But yeah, that's probably one of my funniest moments.
Yeah. A bit of poo story is always funny.
Yeah. Toilet jokes.
Oh yeah. Got that kind of humour.
Yeah.
Oh dear. So yeah, that's our D&D story for today.
Yeah.
It's it was quite an interesting one to DM for sure, and I think it highlights, potentially the best part about being a dungeon master is not being able to anticipate what the players are gonna do. They, are writing the story just as much as you are. There is no way I could have ever prepared for what you guys did that day. And that's great. That's awesome. It's great sort of experiencing the story with the players as they go.
But now power gaming.
Yes. Oh, goodness.
I'll let you briefly describe power gaming.
This is a big topic. It's a very big topic, and people in the D&D community are generally very much on one side or the other. It's a very divisive topic. Basically, what we're referring to when we say power gaming is doing everything you possibly can in your character creation, your level ups, in whatever it may be, to make your character as quote unquote powerful as possible. You're putting, all your points into specifically what you, and when I say powerful, I mean combat powerful. So putting all of your points and all of your skills and everything into what you can do in combat, trying to make you hit as hard as possible, take as much, damage as possible. It's kind of like how a lot of people build characters in video games. They try and obviously make them as strong as possible. I am a big, massive advocate of please don't do this. Which sounds weird. The reason being, though, you can obviously try and make it... Everyone is naturally going to try and make their character strong, increase their strengths, try and have them really great at certain things. But I think it's just as, if not actually more important, to create your character around something you will enjoy playing, that you will enjoy role-playing, that you can get into creatively, that's going to be fun for you to play and not just something that's all numbers. Which you have, I think you've done really well so far, and all of your characters so far, is you've done what you think is fun role-play-wise. Yeah. You've had a bit of an image in your head when you've created your characters, and you've run with that, which I think is great. And it's highlighted when you mention, I don't really know what power gaming is. That's because you don't do it.
Yes, might start doing it now though. But with power gaming, can you also do that plus also strive for like enjoying your character and role playing? Can you be on both sides of the coin?
You absolutely can. You can still try and power game and also have a great time role playing. The thing is, there's two things. First of all, generally, if you are power gaming, you are, like I said, doing things to make you roll as high a damage as possible to get as much health as possible, which means you're playing a very specific way, which generally means you're not doing something because it's interesting or that you think is fun. You're doing something specifically for the reason to be strong. So it's kind of taking away a little bit from your roleplay side of things. The other thing, and the more difficult thing with power gaming, is if you've got a group of players and you've got, say you've got 4 people in your group, and you've got 3 people who are just creating, picking races, picking classes, picking skills and abilities that they think are fun, they think are cool, they really want to, have fun role playing and enjoying it that way, and you've got one player who is power gaming and trying to make the strongest character possible, all of a sudden everything is going to go out of whack. Because I watched a really interesting couple of videos around this, but sort of around the concept of power doesn't exist in D&D. And the reason behind that is, if I've got a really strong party and I'm the dungeon master, I'm just going to throw a really strong encounter at you guys. I want it to be challenging. I want you guys to have fun in the encounter. And, I know that as a player, it's not very fun when A, you're getting absolutely destroyed, or B, it's an absolute walk in the park, is it?
Exactly. And that just becomes I feel as though that becomes unfair on other players too, since that they may not be at that combat level.
Well, and that's the big flaw in power gaming. When, as a DM, if you've got 1 or 2 players that have tried to build the strongest possible character and are really power gaming, and then you've got some other players that are really into the role playing, just doing things that they enjoy and things that are fun, all of a sudden, when I'm making the combat, I've got 2 options. I can make the combat balanced for the power gamers, and all of a sudden, the people that aren't power gaming are going to get left in the dust and not be able to contribute because it's going to be way too difficult. Or I can make the combat balanced for the people who aren't power gaming, make the combat balanced for the people who are, just doing stuff because it's fun, it's interesting, it's good to role play. And then all of a sudden, the people that are power gaming destroy everything in the combat because it's way too easy. And you can see all of a sudden there's that imbalance. So it's... And this is why I always suggest people play something, create your character and play or do whatever you want, because it's interesting, because you think it's fun, because you think it's cool, because there's a great little bit of it that you think, oh gee, I really love that aspect. Play it because of that, not because, all right, if I do this I can increase my stats by 2% or something like that, because at the end of the day the DM's going to create the encounter to the difficulty that they think it should be at. So really, whether you're, level 1 or level 20, the difficulty is probably going to be the same either way, because the DM is going to throw appropriate battles your way. They're not going to throw something that's insanely, unless they are an evil DM. Some DMs just chuck encounters at players no matter what their level is, and just think, you can deal with it. But generally that's not how the games run.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel as though with power gaming, it's just, I feel like you put yourself at an advantage too, or disadvantage. Just because if you're the only one that's power gaming, I feel like then things would start to get a bit boring as well. Because if you're doing all the work in the combat and everyone else is either A, going down, or 2, just not participating in combat because not at their level, wouldn't it just be boring doing it on your own as well? Because since D&D is such a team-based game.
Well, yeah, it's entirely multiplayer based, yeah.
Not being able to rely on any other characters or collaborate with any other characters as well, that just sucks the fun out of it. And
if you really do want a power game and you really want to try and bump your numbers to the max that they can possibly be, sort of figure that out before you start the campaign. Find a group that's like, hey guys, let's try and make the most OP group ever. Let's all power game and let's all try and make the strongest possible characters, build a party that really, bounces off each other's strengths and weaknesses. That's great. If you want to do that, that's fine. And the DM, whoever's running the game, can adjust the difficulty of the campaign as necessary. And that's easy to keep balanced because everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
Or, if you don't want to worry about that and you just want to, enjoy the game, enjoy role play, you've got to remember, if you're playing what you think is a quote unquote weak character, if everyone in the party is playing, characters that are around the same strengths and, around the same ability levels and everything, you're not actually going to be at any disadvantage compared to the party that is all power gamers.
Yeah.
Because as a DM, if I'm DMing a group that's all power gamers, I'll throw a more difficult encounter at them. If I'm playing with a group that's more just playing, for the fun of the game, enjoying the role play, enjoying diving into the world, I'm going to throw an encounter at them that's same difficulty, like relative, but it's going to be a bit easier than the other one, as long as it's still challenging the group. That's all that matters.
Exactly.
And so the idea of power is actually a little bit of an illusion, because the difficulty is just what the DM has decided to throw at you.
So if you are into power gaming, I think it'd probably be best to find a group that is also into power gaming, or a DM that allows it. But have you ever come across a group where you didn't know someone was intending to power game, but they have, while the rest of the team members are not?
Yeah, it does happen, and I think the thing is, and like I said, everyone is naturally going to, power gaming isn't a bad thing per se. There's nothing wrong with trying to make a character strong. That's fine. And everyone naturally sort of does that. When I'm talking about the sort of negative aspect of power gaming, it's when they're only doing specific things purely because that's the most optimized way of doing that character. So generally, people, it happens all the time. You've always got a party where one person will be stronger than another player. Players will have different strengths and weaknesses. That's easy to manage. What's difficult to manage is when you have the extremes, when someone is literally consciously trying to power game to their best of their ability. That's when it gets thrown out of whack a little bit more, because that becomes a lot more noticeable, particularly at higher levels, when that sort of stuff starts to creep out a little bit, I think. But yeah, I think, it's important to know there's absolutely nothing wrong with, I'm not saying build weak characters, I'm not saying, make terrible, characters. I'm just saying that it's much, much more important to play something that you find interesting, that you think, oh gee, this is really cool, I love this concept, I love this idea, and that you can have fun role playing. Do that, and then let the DM do their job and make sure that the campaign is an appropriate difficulty. It'll get harder as you level up, obviously, and go from there. Don't think, all right, I've got to make the strongest possible character I can, because otherwise I'm going to die. If you've got a good DM, they're not going to throw stuff at you that is impossible.
Exactly. Would you ever run a session where you would not want power gaming, but have a power gaming kind of session? That makes sense.
With a group that wanted to power game.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that would be great fun as a dungeon master to run a session or a campaign for a group of people that wanted to power game.
Yeah.
Because it means I can take the gloves off a little bit as the DM and throw the really hard monsters and the really hard encounters at them, because that's what that's what they will be expecting, and that's what will suit a group of really, power game focused players. That would be heaps of fun. I think the key is having the whole group on the same page.
Yes.
If everyone's wanting to power game, that's fine. That's obviously how the group wants to play the game. Great. Everyone's having a good time. DM can up the difficulty. Not a problem at all. I think that'd be great fun. As long as everyone's on the same page.
Yeah. I feel as though, I don't know why, but I feel like power gaming would be good for like a one-shot in a way.
Yeah.
I feel like long-term, you'd need something to spice it up a little bit. You'd want that difficulty. You want that feeling of going, like, if your character goes down but you survive it, just like more of a story compared to just like battle and cruising through.
Yeah, and you're 100%, when you mention sort of the long term, you're going to get a lot more bored, a lot faster, of playing a character that's purely numbers to you. It's purely like, right, this is the strongest possible character I can create. Whereas if you're creating a character for flavour purposes, because you enjoy the characteristics, you love role-playing it, it doesn't matter how strong or weak you are, you're going to really enjoy playing that character for a long period of time because it's actually something that you're interested in compared to something that's just, quote unquote strong.
Exactly.
So you're going to have much more, longevity with the character, and you're going to get a lot more attached to the character, which isn't always a good thing, because when your character dies or might end up dying, tears can be shed.
Can't relate.
Yeah.
I haven't had a character that's died yet or gone down.
Don't tempt me.
No, I was about to say, I've actually never had to make a second character. I'm just.
You haven't. No,
I haven't.
I mean, you've only played in a few campaigns. There's still plenty of time.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I suppose, like, in saying that though, and sometimes I think people, when they think about D&D, think it's a rite of passage. You have to have had a character die. I mean, death is very much part of the game. You can lose a character, and sometimes it gets brought back. Sometimes you have to make a new character. Not necessarily anything wrong with you not having a character die though, because, and this is very important as well, it sort of comes into the power gaming. It's not the DM's job to kill you. That's not at all what's meant to happen. And to be totally honest, if there is a DM with the mindset of, right, it's my job to kill the party, then are you like really terrible at DMing because you've got the power of the world at your disposal? Like, if the DM wanted to kill the players, he could do it in an instant. Just throw like the most difficult creature at them. Like, there's no challenge in that. The challenge is making a great story and challenges for the party to overcome. You're not trying to kill them. You're trying to challenge them. And that's very hard to do appropriately when people are power gaming, and some aren't and some aren't. But yeah, I think it's it'll happen. You'll lose a character.
Maybe one day. We'll see.
You're that confident.
I am confident. I feel like I flesh out my characters well. I mean, the next character I want to do is going to be a bit more of a not exactly a weak character, but not as defensively stacked like my character at the moment. So we'll see then. But you never know. I could still come through as the OG.
And I was going to say, it's important to mention, all right, you haven't had a character die yet, but all your characters have been insanely tanky, like defensive based.
I haven't played a ranged or weaker kind of.
When you say weak, you mean like weaker defense,
lower stat. Yeah.
So you haven't, you've certainly had the more survivable characters, I guess. I mean, so far in the campaign I'm currently running, the two deaths have been the ranger and the rogue. Yeah. Which are both, lower HP.
Surprised the wizard hasn't gone down.
Yeah, he's been quite cautious.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's not the DM's role to try and kill the party. It's the DM's role to try and challenge the party, and that's what makes a great story. Overcoming, difficult challenges, and feels even better when you pass them. But yeah, so that's basically what power gaming is, and why I think it's so important to make sure that you play the game in a way that you find interesting, in a way that you find fun, in a way that interests you. Don't just play the game to try and, make the strongest character possible. Because no matter what character you make, it can be as strong or as weak as the story allows it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And as you mentioned, you're going to have a lot more fun long term as well. Yeah. Getting attached to a character that you actually find interesting, rather than just the damage dealer.
Maybe if you are interested in having a fully stacked and high stat kind of character, maybe try it in a one shot.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, if you've got a group of people that all really want to try and power game and make strong,
Yeah.
but that's fine
That's
as well. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Like I said, as long as everyone's on the same page, there's nothing worse than
Yeah.
you know having a party where there's one player who's just metagaming the hell out of it and making this super strong character, and the rest of the people are trying to have fun, and all of a sudden combat becomes impossible as a DM because it's like, how do I provide a challenge that's fair to everyone because you know their strengths are so different. But yeah, that's basically power game, and that's why I want to sort of touch on it now as well, because we're still gonna keen to look into you know the how to build the different classes, different character classes
so
in D&D.
We'll probably do a character next week.
Yeah.
Character?
A class.
Class, sorry. Yeah, class.
But it's important to keep that in mind while we're doing that sort of stuff. While we're touching on how to build different characters and classes, is look at when we're looking at how to build it. Look at what's interesting to you. Look at what you think, oh, gee, that's got a lot of potential. Or, gee, story, I could make a great backstory out of that. Look at that sort of stuff when you're looking at building your class and building your character. Not just, this sounds strong, I'll take that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's boring. Do something cool and interesting.
All right.
So, is it time for the...
I think it's time for the jokes. I think we've touched base on pretty much everything about power gaming.
We have. I mean, we haven't touched base on it's a very big topic.
Yeah.
It's very divisive. It's a massive, massive topic, but that's the main crux of it. That's the main idea around sort of what power gaming means. It's important, like I said, it's important to remember that power gaming isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can still try and make strong characters. It's as long as everyone's on the same page. And so don't go away from this episode thinking, never make strong characters.
Yeah.
Don't have that mindset. You can still make strong characters. Just
Exactly.
Keep in mind, what sort of campaign and what sort of game you're a part of. And if it's a campaign with, lots of new players, or if it's a campaign, very role-play story-based, keep that in mind, and maybe don't try and make your God mode character from the get-go. All right, are you ready?
I am.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You don't look ready.
I'm never ready. I just say I am so you can say it.
All right, I think you'll appreciate this one because it's got your favourite class
Barbs.
involved. It does have the barb involved.
Love my barbs.
Yeah, and I think this has actually happened in a few campaigns as well. Not exactly to this extent, but...
Maybe I'll be able to get the answer right.
I think... Oh, no, I think...
Like I did with that last joke.
I think it's relatable, put it that way.
Okay.
So,
Alright, go.
If the barbarian has 10 gold coins...
Yep.
And the rogue steals half of them, what does the rogue take?
5.
1d12 slashing damage.
Oh my god. That's actually a good one.
Yeah. I liked it.
That was
liked
good.
it. Yeah,
That was
just
clever.
slash at the rogue. or bludgeoning, whatever weapon you're using, but it's going to take 1d12 damage one way or the other.
That was a good one.
I liked it. If you're a rogue, don't steal from the party. It's overplayed. It's overdone.
Especially barbarians.
Yeah, I should say, if you're a rogue, don't steal from party members. That can kill you. Or if you do, don't get caught. Alright, but yeah, I'm very keen to jump into another class.
Yeah, we'll have to have a think about
creation next week.
What class should we do?
Well, I'm pretty keen. We did a barbarian previously, so I'm pretty keen to mix it up and do maybe like a magic or a range based, a bit of a different realm before going back into your close quarters melee. So something like a wizard or a sorcerer, maybe, just to spice it up with a bit of magic.
So we'll have a debate whether it's going to be the wizard or the sorcerer, but stay tuned for next week to see which one it is, and we'll go through it and flesh out a magical character.
We'll see you then for all the fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for tuning in to Married with Dragons. It's been good. I did miss it last week. I was thinking about it all while I was at work.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll make it next week. Hopefully you don't get any emergencies.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll tell them we've got D&D to talk about.
Exactly. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Thank you.